All right, welcome everyone. This is the very beginning of Module 2. So in this one right here, in Module 2, we're going to talk about a couple things. First of all, we're going to talk about how to uh, manipulate the file structure in the Linux environment. So we've already talked about a couple different things such as Linux file system. We talked about the how to go ahead and get help, how to run a couple of different commands. Well, now we're going to talk about how we can go ahead and work with files in the actual Linux operating system. So in the I'm going to go ahead and pull up this right here just so you can see. All right, so I'm in my home directory right here, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all this stuff. Actually, no, I'm going to go ahead and so typically when we're working in the GUI environment, right, we can go ahead and kind of get an idea about what we need to do. So this module lecture is going to be talking about how we can work with files and directories. And specifically, we're going to be talking about how to create files and directories, how to move them, and how to copy them. Now, we've already used the move command, the copy command a little bit, and we've also used the tree commands. This will be a little bit of review. But overall, I think we're going to see how we can actually chunk these together to go ahead and create directories and files within the Linux operating system. So that way we don't have to actually, we're not going to be using the GUI. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and do a quick review of where I'm at. I'm in my terminal right here. I'm going to break this up just a little bit more. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a PWD. I'm in the student home directory. Okay. And I'm going to do an ls. Again, we talked about this a little bit, and then we can go in a little more detail a little bit later. But like with the white, it corresponds to the files. The blue corresponds to the directories themselves. And then the bash test.sh, those are applications that can be run, okay? So let's go and actually learn how to create a file, okay? So in Linux, it's actually very intuitive. To create a file, we do what's called a touch command. So when you touch something, that means you're creating it automatically. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to go ahead and actually do a touch command, but we're also going to actually try to use that with another command. It's going to be make dir. So there's two different commands again. It's going to be touch, that's to create files, and then make mkdir, which stands for make directory. Okay. So we have this idea right here. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to actually make a directory first. Let's make a directory, and we're going to call this directory storage. Okay. Now, I want to make sure that storage was created. I'm going to do an ls, and there's my directory storage right there, right? Okay. I'm going to introduce a new also way we can look at this. And this will come a little bit handy. So I'm going to do, if I do an ls tac help here, I can see that there's a little bit of information about the ls command right here. So and in the activities in the previous lecture, I think I had you use the tac-l. But I want you to understand the tac-l allows you to give you a long list of information. So what I will recommend is that you should be using tac-l every time you do an ls command, unless you're just trying to go ahead and find something. So let's go ahead and actually get out of here. I'm going to clear this up. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's do an ls tac-l. And just to go ahead and help you, if you do an ls tac-l, here's what we get interesting. If it's a file, there's going to be no dash. It's going to be a dash here. So all these are files, right? Notice that remember I said the blue corresponds to the directories of the different colors. Actually, in the ls tac-l, it actually does tell you it's a directory. So it's a directory right here, okay? And then you also have this one. This is also a file. So this is how we can actually get more information. We can verify a couple of things a little bit more. So we created a directory called storage, and we found it right here. All right. So now let's go ahead and actually do, we're going to create an empty file. And we're going to go ahead and actually create this file we're going to later on mess with it to move it into storage. So let's go ahead and create, we're going to do a touch. Actually, let me scroll down. There we go. Let me see. Sorry. Oh, that's why. All right. Let's go ahead and do a touch. We're going to title this info.txt. All right. So I just went ahead and created a file called info.txt. If I want to go ahead and check and make sure it's there, we can see, oh look, there it is right there. Now this is actually corresponding to the number of links that this has. These are permissions, which we'll go about that a little bit later on in the year, in the semester. This is who owns it. This is the user owner and who's the group owner of it. This is how big it is. And this is the last day it was created or modified. And then this is the title. Okay, so this is how you kind of read this output right here. And like I said, we'll review this again more as we go ahead and continue moving forward with this course. So we went and actually created this right here, this idea of storage. We created this file called info.txt. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and actually take this information and we're going to start messing with it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and actually do another directory, okay? But we're going to go ahead and actually add a new option to it. So when I go ahead and add these options or anything, it's going to change the way the actual make directory command works. So just to go ahead and get an idea of how this is going to work, I'm going to do make directory tac help. And I'm going to use this tac p in this next command. So no error if existing, it makes parent directories as needed. So what we're going to do, we're going to make another set of directories. We're going to make dir. We're going to go ahead and actually make storage. We're going to go ahead and actually make some directories in storage. So this can be storage /local/user/documents. Now, I do want to go ahead and actually just kind of touch on something in here real quick. Notice that I didn't put a / in front of storage, okay? The reason why is because storage is actually where I currently sit. It's local. So what we call this in the Linux world, we call this a relative path, okay? So it's relative to where I currently sit in the actual file structure. Now, let's say, for example, I wasn't near this actual, this actual one. Let's say I actually was in a different directory that had no access to storage. Then we would have to put a / in front of it. What that means is that that's called an absolute path, okay? So this way, the operating system it only knows based off of the current path sections in. So if I actually am trying to go to some section that's like totally far away and not even close to this area and everything else, I have to go ahead and tell it exactly where I want to go. Think of it like giving directions. Okay, you want to go ahead and go to the nearest Starbucks, so you tell it relatively where they're going, where people actually where it's at. You're like, oh, it's over here by by 604 and 281. Cool. That's the one we want to go to. So we're going to go. That's the relative. So it's in the vicinity of where you're at. Absolute is going to be like, I need to go to 1482 1604 west. This is going to be the absolute like directions. We're not going to just drive to 60421 and just look for the sign and see where it's at. Okay, that's the best way I can kind of go ahead and give an explanation for absolute and relative path. So we're going to give relative path, and we're going to make this directory. We're going to make the directories local, user, and documents. And the way we're going to do that, we're going to add the tac p right there. So now if I do an ls tac l, notice that storage is still there, but local's not in here. But if I did an ls of storage, there's local. So it's actually, instead of having to do ls of storage and local, let's do a tree of storage. There we go. So now within storage, there's a local directory. Within local is a user directory. Within user, there's a documents directory. All right. So we went ahead and created 4 directories without having to go ahead and type in, we didn't have to go ahead and make directory and change directory, make directory, change directory. It's a little quicker way we can do this a little bit. All right. So we can go ahead and then give a little bit more information. So let's go ahead and actually, I want to create another file. I'm going to actually put this into the user folder, okay? So we can actually go ahead and really kind of specify where we're at. So I'm going to do a touch like you. We're going to create a file, touch, and I'm going to go ahead and actually, the way the touch works, I have to give the path first, with the actual where it's going to be. So if it's going to be in the current folder, I just got to put the name, like we did with the when we created info.txt. Now with this one, we're going to create an actual file called userinfo.txt. So I'm going to put this in storage, and I'm doing autocomplete with the tab key. So that way I don't type everything. Local, and then I'm going to go ahead and go down to user, and this is going to be called userinfo.txt. Okay, and I'm going to hit enter. Now if I do a tree of storage again, there you go right there. You can see that user info is actually in the users folder with the documents directory. Okay, so we can kind of see how that works there. So now what we're going to do is I want to go ahead and move. Okay, I'm going to move this. I'm going to rename it. So I'm going to rename info.txt to what's called information.txt. So again, we're going to be renaming. I'm doing ls. We're renaming info.txt. And we're going to rename it to information.txt. So to rename something or to move something from one directory to another with changing without having to go ahead and create a new file. Okay, that's the difference. Remember, we talked about between move and copy. Copy keeps the original and makes a new one. Move takes the original with you. Okay, we're going to move info.txt. I'm going to call it information.txt. Okay. Cool. So now if I do an ls-l, you should see that now info.txt is now called information.txt. Now here's the other cool thing I want you to take in consideration. So here is info.txt 2305. Notice notice that the times didn't change. Okay, changing the name of the file doesn't change the timestamps for it. All right, cool. So now we're going to go ahead and then move it to the storage directory. So now we're going to go ahead and move information.txt to /storage. And now if I tree storage, you're going to see now it's there. So I can see that it's right there. Okay, cool. So far so good. Again, nothing too difficult, nothing too hard. We're just trying to go ahead and make sure we're getting familiar with how to do these, okay? So now we've already renamed the file, and now what I want to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and create another file. This is going to be called readme. So I'm going to do a touch readme.txt, okay? Now, one of the cool things about this, I'm going to go ahead and move information. I'm going to move /storage information.txt back to the home folder. And this is the reason why, okay? You don't have to do this second part right here, but I recommend you do because I really want to showcase that you can actually move multiple files with the move command. So we're going to go ahead and move the readme.txt and information.txt. I'm going to move those to storage /storage, right? Or we're going to go ahead and just say storage because it's a relative path. So now if I tree storage, now you can see that both of them, information.txt and readme.txt, are now in the storage directory, right? So we can kind of see we're getting used to actually doing this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually copy the storage readme.txt. I'm going to copy it to this local directory here. So now I'm going to cp. We got storage /readme.txt. I'm going to go ahead and copy it to storage /local. And when I do this, let's see what happens. All right, so I'm going to tree storage. Now notice I have two readmes. One of them is here in the storage directory, and one of them is also here in the local directory. So we got this idea of how we can go ahead and copy, move, and we can go ahead and create both directories and also files. Now in the next module, I'm going to go ahead and talk about how we can go ahead and edit these files. But before we do that, let's go ahead and actually we want to go ahead and clean up. We've been actually working with this. We're going to clean up what we did. So I'm going to go ahead and actually do a remove. So there's a couple different things we can do. This command rm is actually for remove. So if I go to rm, this is to remove files. Okay. Now you can remove directories. However, I have to stipulate you can only remove directories that are empty if you use the tac d option. So how do we fix this? Well, actually, we also have a remove directory command too. And notice that this one also says we can remove the file, or actually, sorry. Here we go, sorry. Remove the directories if they're empty. So remove directory only removes directories if they're empty. So how do we deal with the fact that, let's say, for example, I want to remove every directory, including stuff that has stuff in it. I don't have to do rm. Well, let's look at the help command. Well, we talked about the tac d, and that says remove entry directories. Notice that there's this one above it that says recursive. So you're going to remove directories and their contents recursively. So when we say recursively, it means it's going to go through each actual directory and file within the directory you give and remove those as well. Okay, but before we do that, I'm going to do a remove tac d, or actually I'm going to do a remove dr storage. I want you to see what happens. It failed to remove the storage directory because it's not empty. So even if you try to remove it, you can even do the rm tac d and do a storage. It still gives you, hey, I can't do anything with this because it's not empty. So how do we use this to our advantage? Well, we can go ahead and actually, like I said before, we're going to use the rm tac r. So we're going to go ahead and do an rm tac r, and we're going to go ahead and type in storage. Now, if I do an ls tac l, storage is gone completely. All right? So I added this little quip in there to go ahead and get you familiar with how to remove stuff, rm dir. So with that being said, just go ahead and know that everything's been good on this section right here. We're good. You're ready to go and move on to the next one. Next one, we talk about how to edit files. And then there's going to be about 5 or 6 module videos for this section. And it'll go pretty quickly. They're not going to be that long like this one. So if you have any questions or anything, please email me, and I'll see you in the next video.